Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 regular scheduled meeting of the Advisory Technical Committee of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. Mark or Ann, may I have a roll call, please?
I'll be taking care of that today. Bolinas Fire District. City of Larkspur.
Here.
Kentfield Fire. Here. Devato Fire.
Here.
Stinson Beach. Town of Ross. Present. City of Mill Valley. County of Marin. Here. Marinwood CSD. We see you saying hi, but we didn't hear you.
No.
Oh, now we got you.
Okay.
Really low volume though. Sleepy Hollow. Town of Corte Madera. Town of San Anselmo. Here. City of San Rafael. Inverness Fire.
Yes, Jim Fox.
Muir Beach.
David Taylor.
Southern Marin Fire. Here. Town of Fairfax.
Here.
And for our non-voting members, California State Parks.
Here.
Pacific Gas and Electric. That was easy for me. National Park.
Good afternoon, here.
Thank you. ESP. Let me double check, see if there's some people in the audience I need to move over.
Mark, Jim Chaka here from Marin County Parks.
Thank you, Jim. And I do need to move over Fire Safe Marin. And as soon as you're over, Rich, please let me know if Fire Safe Marin is present.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
And Marin Water.
Marin Water's here.
Thank you, Sean. We have a quorum and good to go, Mark, Ruben.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Item number 3, or before we get to item number 3, just some housekeeping items under the Brown Act. I was unable to attend in person due to having a cold and not wanting to infect everyone. So I am currently running the meeting out of my office here in Corte Madera. The agenda was posted last night, and there are no members of the public present.
So noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So item number 3, are there any adjustments to the agenda from any of the staff members or any members of the ATC? Seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and go to item number 4. This is the open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the ATC at this time on matters that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take actions on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful. Mark, do we have any members of the public present that would like to make a comment?
If anyone would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom feature or press *6 to raise your hand. And we have no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back. Going to item number 5, planning and program managers report. Ann? Please stand by while we take care of some technical issues.
All right, how's this? That sounds
Much,
right.
much better.
All
That
right,
works.
thank you. I am just going to share my screen here. Great. Just have a few slides here. A few updates for the group. First, you may remember last year we started working on a streamlining process for contracting for core vegetation management projects. And this is an optional process that member agencies can take advantage of to, get your contractors in place for veg management projects. We started the process last fall, went out for requests for qualifications to the broader public, sent it around to a lot of different folks, got pretty widely circulated. We closed the RFQ in October. In November and December, we worked on reviewing and scoring packages sent by various contractors. And now we're working on notifications to contractors and determining who would like to sign a master services agreement with us for vegetation management services. We've got a good list of contractors that we're working with. It's not final quite yet. It'll be final in the next day or so as we prepare our board package for the January MWPA board meeting. But we will be asking these contractors to sign master service agreements with us to do vegetation management work, including, tree work, hand crews, you name it. And under those master services agreements, we would work with member agencies to draft task orders for specific tasks, specific projects. And these task orders under 200,000 can be signed by Mark. And so it's a very short process to get those task orders in place. Over 200,000, those would go to the board, likely on consent for approval. And so even that process is a pretty quick process since the competitive selection process is already taken care of through the MSA process. So we're working right now through those MSAs. There's a list here of contractors that we think will be on that list who scored well. Thank you to those of you who helped us score the submittals. So one note is, this is a way of streamlining the contracting process for you guys. You don't have to use this process if it doesn't work for you. I would note that talking with legal counsel and how to make this work, it probably does mean that our veg management specialists will be more involved in projects that where we're named in the contract. So more time out in the field, checking in with crews and double checking that, T's are crossed and I's are dotted, etc. So expect some coordination there if you'd like to work with us in that capacity. But we're really excited for this process. It's something that we've been requested to pursue, and we hope it's really useful for our member agencies. So stay tuned. We'll have more kind of process-related documents to share with you so that you all know exactly how to start working with us if this is something that is going to be useful for you. Go ahead, Fred.
Sorry, I wanted to ask a question. So is this going to be kind of like a first come, first serve type basis as far as if we want to use these contractors, or is there going to be a schedule for, these contractors to do work within the jurisdictions in the county?
Yeah, I think it'll be first come, first serve. It'll be, dependent upon their availability. And then, any number of member agencies may be contracting with the same contractors outside of this process too. So would certainly need to check in on their availability. But they've been very eager to work with us, those that have already and have staffed up to do so. I think some of the early adopters will probably be Novato. We've started talking about the Greater Novato Shaded Fuel Break, the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break, some of the larger projects. So we'll, those will be the guinea pigs for the process, and then we'll get it tight and efficient, and then look to expand to some of the other projects. Great, thanks. So a few other items, January 19th, there's a lot going on that day. We want to let you know that Mark and I and some other folks that you'll hear from today actually are helping out with a webinar. 10 a.m. to say noon or 12:30. We're going to be working on January 19th with Cal Poly's Swanton Pacific Ranches Fuel Management Training Program. And this is a group that they've got CAL FIRE funding, and they're working with professionals all around the state of California to kind of get the word out on how people are actually taking on and implementing projects around the state. So they talk to a number of different entities and host webinars and field visits to just talk through, the complexities of this kind of work. So they reached out to us, and we've been working with them for the last few months to put together a webinar. Mark and I are going to speak. Sonoma Technology is going to speak. County of Marin, the Community Development Agency, is going to take part as well, as will Panorama and Sequoia, our environmental contractors. So I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. We're going to focus on coastal Marin and the need for work out there and the complexities around that and kind of the available planning processes in coastal Marin. So you can go to the Cal Poly FAVE website to register. We've already got a pretty good number of folks registered right now, some around 65. And so I think we'll see a pretty good turnout. And it'll start a good discussion, with other folks who are working on the same types of issues all around the state. We'd like to follow it up with a field visit. So expect, I don't think we have a set date yet, but we should be heading out into the field to check out some locations, probably in Inverness, and get a group together and really talk through what this means on the ground. Also, January 19th, busy day. In the afternoon, we are helping host a public field trip. So this one will be focusing on the San Rafael San Anselmo Fuel Reduction Zone project. And we're really excited because this project, we're going to start implementation on a portion of this project. We're selecting, out of the total 159 acres or so, there's one 10-acre pilot project that we've identified that should be fairly straightforward. And it'll be a good place to just get started on the ground with some of the tree removal, the smaller diameter eucalyptus trees. Again, the larger diameter trees are staying there. And so we'd like to get out in the field with members of the public, neighbors, and just talk it through and show what we plan on doing. We'll talk about what the planning process was, what the monitoring process will look like. There will be some interesting data collected during this whole process before and after. And so we're hoping that we get a good turnout of members of the public who want to come out and ask questions. In terms of logistics, we think that the weather is going to be okay, but check the project webpage for updates. If it gets canceled due to rain, we'll notify folks there. We'll meet at the end of 5th Street near the cemetery, in the Mount Tam Cemetery. And you can either walk in, and we'll have maps for folks so they know exactly where to go, or we'll also have a couple of vans, and so we can shuttle people into the project area. So we hope to get people out there talking, asking questions, and taking a look at the site in person. The density of eucalyptus trees is really overwhelming, and it's a good visual reminder of kind of what we're doing and what we're hoping to achieve here. The wildfire risk from these trees is pretty severe, and we're hoping to see some nice native habitat replace it. And that's it for me. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Ann? Belle? You're on mute.
Is this better?
You're muted.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. On the contractor question, which it looks so promising and interesting, do you have a good pool, a big selection, or is it pretty much if a company meets the criteria, they're likely to be initiated? So I'm just curious as to how many get turned down. I mean, how many contractors are there out there, do you think, who can meet these needs?
Yeah, great question. If I recall correctly, and these numbers are estimates, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but we got somewhere around a dozen or so contractors submitting packages of one type or another. a couple of the packages were so brief and lacked information, and when we followed up, they did not provide additional information, so we omitted them from the list. Those that provided adequate information were considered for at least one type of service. Not everybody is going to be considered for every type of service, though. There are some contractors who really specialize in restoration type activities, and that we're going to tap them for, replanting oaks and things like that. There are some that really specialize in ground crew work, hand crews, and so we'll tap them for that. And there are others that specialize in tree work. So it's, we tried to get a good spread of different types of services and focus on those entities that are good at a particular thing. So I think we'll probably have somewhere around 10 different contractors through this process, contracted through an MSA.
Thanks.
Sure. And there will be more on this topic at the January 18th MWPA board meeting. We'll have a staff report on this showing kind of our work and how we scored different submittals. So more information to come.
Thank you, Belle. Is anyone in the boardroom have any questions for Ann? Seeing none, are there any members of the public that would like or have a question or would like to comment on the program manager's report?
Any members of the public, if you'd like to raise your hand in the Zoom features or press *6. We see no hands raised.
Okay, bring it back to the committee. Good report, Ann. Thank you. Did you have one last comment there, Belle, or?
Oh, I did, but it's left my head, so I think let's just not bother with it.
Okay, we'll come back to you if you need it.
Yeah,
Belle, I'll just comment that ESP, the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership, is helping host that field trip on January 19th. So a big thank you, Belle.
yeah, we're looking forward to that a lot. Thank you.
Okay,
And just for notice, Stinson Beach's member is now present.
Okay, is that Mr. Vale?
Affirmative.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Moving on to item number 6, which is our consent calendar. It's the opportunity for the public to comment or consent on the consent agenda item that will occur prior to the committee's discussion. Any member of the committee can also pull an item from the consent calendar for review. Looks like the only thing we have on the consent is minutes from our December 6th meeting. If no one wishes to pull it and discuss it, I am willing to entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve?
May I have a second?
I'll second.
We had a second hand raised by Mr. Taylor prior to the voice from someone else. So we have Southern Moran and Mr. Taylor for second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Larkspur.
Yes.
Bolinas, or actually Bolinas isn't here. Sorry. Kentfield.
Responsible for the second, and yes.
Town of Ross.
Yes.
Stinson Beach Fire.
Yes.
Nevada Fire District.
Yes.
City of Mill Valley.
I'll abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
County of Marin.
Yes.
Marinwood CSD.
Yes.
Town of San Anselmo.
I'll abstain. I wasn't there either.
Inverness Fire.
Yes.
Muir Beach.
Aye.
Southern Marin.
Yes.
Town of Fairfax.
Yes.
We have all yes votes minus 2 abstentions.
Thank you, Mark. Prior to moving on to item number 7, I'd like to welcome Marshall Now as a representative from Southern Marin, representing the city of Mill Valley as part of the ATC. So welcome. Item number 7, which are action items, proposed modification to the ATC committee bylaws. Do we have a report?
Yes, I will share my screen. Great. So this item is really just cleanup from language included in the bylaws that were drafted, before we really got going. The ATC bylaws are attached to the agenda if you'd like to take a look. But they were drafted in early 2021. But they also included some language to allow for modifications. So they can be amended, repealed, or created at any ATC meeting by a majority vote. So we can amend them today if you choose. I recommend taking a look at the current language in the slide and also in the staff report and proposed language. The current language having to do with meeting schedule, I think does not reflect the current or future meeting schedule intended for this ATC, given the workload that is involved in developing the work plan each year. So previously it was written that the committee shall conduct 2 meetings annually unless otherwise authorized by the board. And I'd like to change the language to allow for flexibility and just say that we will meet legal requirements, Brown Act, Government Code Section 54956, which has to do with special meetings, and allow us to set our own schedule as needed. So that's the end of my report. Happy to answer questions. This is something that we also tackled with the Operations Committee bylaws as well, and we took a similar approach. Happy to
Do
answer questions. That's all I have.
you have any questions for Ann?
Are you taking nominations now?
Coming soon, next item.
I think I have a comment, and I think it was very prudent to kind of go through this as a housekeeping item, because technically we've been working outside of what the board wanted or what was written in the bylaws. So I think this allows us a lot more flexibility moving forward with the amount of workload that we have, which requires more than 2 meetings. And having to have to go back to the board regularly for approval, I think would be burdensome, not only for the ATC, but for the entire executive board. Those are just my comments, but I support the language change. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other comments. Belle, I see your hand raised.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the occasion to bring this up, and it could be talked about either separately with Mark or Ann or anybody, but the bylaws themselves preclude the possibility of the at-large members being on subcommittees. And I'm not looking for any more work. I'm just curious. The reasoning for that, and also not so much the reasoning, but whether that is sort of set in stone and that's fine, or if there's an opportunity to open it up. Just curious.
Thanks for that question, Bill. I think that has more to do with the Brown Act than bylaws. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's what I had that feeling, but I didn't bother to read. Thanks.
It was a question that we brought to legal counsel last year as well, to discuss non-voting member participation in the ad hoc subcommittees. And the reasoning came from Brown Act requirements.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Mark, can we see if there's anyone in the public that would like to comment on this item?
If there are any public comments on this agenda item, please raise your hand in the Zoom features or press *6, raise your hand by phone. And we have no raised hands.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and bring it back to the committee. At this point, are we looking for a motion and a second to approve the changes, or just as a recommendation for us to review? Ann or Mark?
Yes, you can take action today and vote.
Okay. I fully support the changes. Not sure how everybody else feels, but if everyone's in agreement, I'm here ready to entertain a motion for changes within the bylaws.
Kentfield Fire, I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve the proposed modification to the Advisory Technical Committee bylaws, specifically the meeting in item A.
Second.
We have a first and we have a second. May we have a roll call, please?
So glad we're having a race for first and second. Larkspur,
Yes.
Kentfield,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Stinson Beach,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Marinwood,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
Inverness,
Aye.
Muir Beach,
Yes.
Southern Marin,
Yes.
Fairfax.
Yes.
100% vote of those in attendance.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to item number B for chair and vice chair elections. This is the opportunity where every year we can either rotate chair and vice chair or make new nominations. Is there anyone within the committee willing to nominate someone else to either chair or vice chair? I think the vice chair one is the only one that's up right now, so. I will make a nomination for Fred Hilliard from Southern Marin to sit as vice chair for the ATC. Are there any other motions for any other members?
I'd second Fred Hilliard from Town Fairfax.
We have a first and we have a second. May we get a roll call, please?
And I believe we need to nominate Chief Martin if he's going to stay on as chair.
Kenfield would like to nominate Chief Ruben Martin for the president and chair position.
Donna Ross will second that motion.
Great. And I think we can vote on both the vice chair and chair in the same vote.
Okay,
Unless there were
can we
any,
get a roll call for the approval of Chief Martin, which is myself, as chair and Fred Hilliard as vice chair? And can I get a first? Or a nomination for that or a motion?
We're making a motion to vote on those two positions.
Correct.
I will make a motion to start voting for the chair and vice chair position for the ATC.
May I have a second, please?
Seconded.
Okay, we've got a first and a second. May we get a roll call, please?
here's your chance, Ruben. Larkspur,
Yes.
Kentfield,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Stinson Beach,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Marinwood,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
Inverness,
Yes.
Muir Beach,
Yes.
Southern Marin,
Yes.
Fairfax.
Yes.
100%.
Nice. Slate moves and slate passes. Thank you,
Ruben,
everyone.
you're not allowed to have vacation till April after.
After I retire. All right, thank you, everyone, on those items. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 8, which are discussion items. Item number 8A is fiscal year 24-25 work plan development update. Do we have a report?
Yes, we do. And I will keep this brief, but I do have a couple of slides here. Aha. Okay, so this slide you've seen before. This is just a summary of the overall plan of attack here. So these are the milestones and tasks involved in the next few months. To review, we have updated the web portal and it should be up and running as of now. So that is exciting. In December, we started convening the ATC and operations committees. In January, now we've ticked off the box for selecting a chair and vice chair for this season. The operations committee will also, as an FYI, be considering kind of overall strategy and guidance for development of the work plan. And we'll be considering a few additional items in addition to the strategic guidance that was provided last year and the year before. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be voting on that tomorrow. In February and March, that's really when things are going to be underway developing projects, proposals, programs for this next fiscal year. We'll be working on JPA-wide proposals and making sure that they are in the portal with draft budget numbers associated with them earlier rather than later, so that you can do the math and your core budgets will be more straightforward with our kind of advanced work there. So we'd like to get JPA-wide proposals into the portal and the draft budget by March 1st. March 15th, we'd love to see initial drafts for all the member agency proposals. 31st, we'd love to have final proposals in there so we can start kind of QA/QCing, making sure that we're using consistent language, et cetera, in the portal, and that our work plan can be finalized sooner rather than later. And that's really when the operations committee is going to be diving into the budgeting process. They're going to be vetting the proposals and thinking through the budgets and where there are competing proposals and budget issues. They're going to be thinking through that. So a lot of public meetings for the ATC and Operations Committee during this time. We'll be vetting all of these proposals publicly in these meetings and allowing the public to see what we're thinking for next fiscal year. And as we enter items into the work plan portal online, we vet them in these public meetings. We'll be flipping the switch online to make those proposals public and visible on our website. We'll be really diving into the budget in April, and by May 2nd, that's when the Operations Committee will be discussing the work plan and presumably voting to recommend the work plan and budget to the MWPA board for consideration. The board date that we're targeting is May 16th. So a lot to do before May 16th. I do anticipate that a lot of the proposals that we see this next fiscal year or this season will be repeats, kind of continued implementation of existing projects and programs. That's to be expected, but we may see some new projects, I think. And now would be a great time to start brainstorming with your staff, with land management agencies, and making sure that folks know what you're thinking. Land management agencies would really like to know by mid-January, by about now, what you're thinking on their lands so that they can plan ahead. The web portal is up and running. We worked with our consultants to look for and fix any bugs in the portal. We tried to break it as many times and in as many ways as we could so that we could anticipate any issues. So let us know if you see any technical issues in the portal, and we'll work with our contractors to fix them, but we should be looking really good. So what is the web portal? For those of you who are new to it, this is the online tool for submitting proposals for the work plan. So any of your core, local, or DSpace projects can be submitted through this process. You can copy an existing proposal and use it and recycle it for this next year. Your project codes for billing should stay with that project. They should not be modified so we can keep that consistent from year to year. And then again, when they're in the portal, we've had time to review them, kind of QA/QC a little bit. We'll be flipping those to make them public and visible to anyone who'd like to see what we're proposing for next year. So now would be a great time to go to our homepage, click on the JPA portal link on the upper left-hand corner. If you are a member agency, you can log in using this button on the upper right, and your previous login should work. If not, let us know and we'll make sure you get a revised password or link sent to you so that you can log in. It'll probably go to your spam folder and it'll only be valid for a short amount of time. So you need to act fast or let us know. And then if you're a member of the public, this button in the middle of the page is where you can access the proposals from previous years and also this current year. So as they become public, that's where you're going to view them. So a little more on the portal. We have Josh Hampshire here, who was previously a Grizzly Corps fellow and is now a grant specialist. He's been working really closely on the web portal with the contractors to make sure it's running smoothly. He and I can help with any technical questions that you have about it. If you're having any trouble, we can walk you through it. We could submit proposals for you. If you want to just submit them as a Word document, that's okay. But Josh is also going to make himself available in the next, few weeks if you'd like to sit down with him and kind of get a tutorial for how to use it. If you'd like to have somebody walk you through how to submit a proposal, that's great. And Josh will be available to do that. And so just last slide, next steps, continue really thinking through and nailing down what kind of projects and proposals you'd like to submit. Think about that 80% budget target for core projects because as you know, and I've mentioned previously, 80% of the revenue spent generated in any particular zone needs to be spent within that zone, averaged over 5 years, and that does give us a little flexibility. And we have that 20% of core budget that we can play with and dedicate that to projects, programs, geographic locations that need a little extra help to get some important things done. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about budget. And then test your login and let me know if you have any trouble. And that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions.
I can just add one comment.
Mm.
This will be our 5th work plan, and it's hard to believe that this is going to be our 5th work plan, which means we're halfway through the life of Measure C unless we renew. That's mind-boggling to me.
Yes, it is. Time has gone by very quickly. Do we have any questions or comments for Ann?
I do have a question. So there's several new members that have joined ATC, as well as there's several agency members that are now doing DSpace proposals. Would it make sense to have Josh possibly do like a short training on using the portal? Might be helpful just to go through all the different ways to, or the way to put a project in properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'd like us to schedule one for Southern Rim Fire, Mill Valley, let me know and we'll get that on the books. And anybody else who's interested.
Thank you. Mark, can we see if there's any comments from the public on this item?
If any members from the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand into reactions in Zoom and *9 on your phone to raise your hand. And no raised hands.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We'll go ahead and bring it back. Thank you, Ann. We'll go ahead and move on to item 8B, which is the revised scope of services for the evacuation, ingress, and egress risk assessment, tasks 5 and 6. Do we have a report, Mark?
Yeah, I'll start that off and then I'm going to pass it off to Tammy. And mostly what I'm going to do is provide a little bit of background that when we embarked upon the evacuation, ingress, egress risk assessment and writing the RFP for this is actually predates the formation of MWPA. We started the process as the MWPA language was being formed. And we thought we were going to need to make software that was evacuation management software inclusive of the evacuation risk assessment. And then Zone Haven came about, we were able to pull that portion out of it. And then we went through our RFP, and the RFP spelled out a dynamic tool, one that would allow us to turn the dial, see what type of benefits that we would see from our risk reduction work. However, that was going to be a complicated process and involved creating new software. So we purposely built a pause between task 4 and task 5. So we are through task 4 on budget and on time. And now we are approaching task 5 and 6, which was the creation of a dynamic tool. As we work through building task 1, 2, 3, and 4 and finishing task 4, we found that the data is so deep and so layered that right now, perhaps creating our own piece of software isn't the best way to handle this. It's utilizing some of the budget that's in the overall budget to allow STI to help member agencies pick through the layers of data so that they can really understand and dig deep and understand what what is creating the hazards and the risks on their roadway. So that'll be the task 5 portion that you see. And then in the same way that Zone Haven came about and created software that we didn't have to develop, we have another opportunity through Ladris, separate from their traffic modeling, but we have another opportunity with Ladris artificial intelligence to do that dynamic tool that we were talking about. So a much more cost-effective way of doing it, rather than us developing software, we can use software that has already been developed. And with that, I'll pass it off to Tammy.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Well, I think you covered 90% of what I was going to say, but let me go ahead and pull up a few slides here. Can everyone hear and see me okay?
We got you.
Okay. Yeah, so as Mark mentioned, we've gotten through task 4, which is the current conditions risk assessment. We've set up all of the data resulting from that work on an online navigatable GIS portal. And, you know, also, as Mark said, the data is deep and rich, and there's a lot of it. And so in thinking through, you know, what should we really be doing for tasks 5 and 6? How can Sonoma technology provide the best sort of value for the dollar, you know, as we continue through the contract? You know, creating a new piece of software probably is not the best thing to do. So Sonoma Technology has been working with MWPA to, you know, identify specific tasks that we can help out with that can replace sort of the software development piece. And so for task 5, Mark sort of touched on this, but there's sort of 2 parts to task 5. One is what we'd like to do with the data that's come out of the current conditions risk assessment is now take that kind of baseline view of the county, which represents really the landscape as it exists before any projects have been done. And when I say projects, I'm mainly talking about vegetation management projects, fuel reduction, and to then look at the projects that have been put on the ground, the ones that are, you know, already complete, maybe are still in progress in various stages of completion. And now to go back and modify our maps to say, okay, well, in this area, this project has been done. How does that reduce the risk as it relates to evacuation? And so much of that work is going to be on looking at the fuel reduction efforts that have been put in place, and then rerunning our, you know, fire behavior models and looking at the reduction in flame length, the reductions in rates of spread, and other risk reduction metrics. And so that's what the first part of task 5 is really about. And, you know, we really want to sort of look at the before and after, and, you know, how are these projects making a difference in terms of evacuation risk reduction? And then to quantify that. And we'll continue to work with MWPA to make sure that the metrics that we come up with align with the goals and objectives that are laid out in the strategic plan. And so that's really the meat of the first part of task 5. And then separately but related, obviously, is task 5B will really involve taking the massive amounts of data and transitioning those over to Green Info Network, which is the new GIS contractor working with MWPA. They're going to be standing up a GIS infrastructure, and we want to make sure that the data that we're providing is, you know, in the right format, right sized. It's going to fit in with all of the other programs that MWPA has got in action. And in parallel with that, we'll be working with Green Info Networks to develop methods and protocols for maintaining data. So as you can imagine, you know, as all of these fuel reduction projects are being completed, that changes a lot of the underlying data that we're using for the modeling. And so we just want to make sure that we're keeping that data up to date as best we can, And there are other contractors, Willow Labs, for example, Panorama, who are also, using this same underlying data. And so it'll be really important for us to make sure that we're being efficient and effective in how we're managing that data. And then, as Mark mentioned, we will be, make ourselves available to assist member agencies with using the data from the evacuation study to help support project planning and their assessments. We're also available to provide technical support on navigating and operating the data that we now have on our online GIS mapping portal, the different portal to the one that Anne was speaking to earlier. But yeah, and just, providing technical support in whatever way is needed. And then Task 6, as Mark also mentioned, will involve doing a pilot demonstration using the LADRIS artificial intelligence evacuation modeling platform. And so interestingly, this LADRIS platform was actually launched just after we started working on the evacuation risk assessment study. So it's relatively new, but it's a very robust platform. It's getting a lot of good reviews from its clients and also peer review articles and so forth. And so Sonoma Technology has been developing a relationship with LADRIS over the last several months, and we will be using the LADRIS platform to do a pilot demonstration where now what we want to look at is what if scenarios. So as part of the evacuation risk assessment work that's already been completed, we did sort of a baseline of evacuation modeling under different weather and time scenarios. And now what we want to be able to do is, in a more dynamic way, look at, okay, if an evacuation were to occur in a certain area under certain weather and fire conditions and times of day, what actions can be taken to help make that evacuation more effective, safer. And so the LADRIS platform allows you to do that in a planning capacity. And the other thing that we'll be able to do is, along evacuation routes, we'll be able to ask questions like, if I do fuel reduction out to 30 feet versus 100 feet, what does that look like in terms of reduced flame lengths and reduced risk along those evacuation routes? And so we'll be piloting this for San Rafael. And as part of the work, we'll assemble, again, a technical advisory team of the stakeholders who will be involved in the pilot demonstration. So that'll be staff from San Rafael Fire, law enforcement, and OEM. And the results of the pilot demonstration will, the data coming out of that will help us quantify, again, the risk reduction by road segments, intersections, evacuation zones, and so forth. You can characterize the data at different geographic ways and scales. And so that's really the meat of tasks 5 and 6 as they've been rescoped. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Tammy, do we have any questions for Tammy or for Mark? Seeing any hands?
One of the purposes of today was to see what you guys think about it, receive any feedback that you guys have for this, so we could circle back with STI and LADRIS on this and then share that feedback with ops.
Very good.
Thank you. Any feedback, comments, questions for Mark or staff or Tammy? Seeing none, do we have any members of the public wanting to comment or ask questions on this discussion?
Any member of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand in the reactions in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. And we see no raised hands.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the committee. Tammy, I want to thank you on behalf of the ATC and all the member agencies on all the work that you and STI have been doing. I'm really excited to see what the results of the pilot program are going to look like and what that data looks like. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 8C, update on potential directions for the fiscal year 2024-2025 resident grant program. Do we have a report?
We do, and I'm just bringing Josh over as a panelist right now.
Hi, Al, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, I don't have a slide deck prepared. I thought I was just going to run through some of the guidelines that a working group of representatives from some of the staff of member agencies who work closely with grant programs and as well as the Defensible Space Inspection Program. Just kind of give an overview of the guidelines that we've come together on so far, and kind of talk about some areas that we still need to figure out. And but just in general, I'm really excited about the direction that it's taken. For those of you who don't know me very well, I recently started this job and have been kind of dealing with some of the the issues and gaps of the current grant program since I started, and having the opportunity to work with member agencies to kind of redesign that to avoid some of those in the future and work better for residents is a really engaging process. So we kind of just starting from some of the issues with the current program that we needed to resolve. About a little over 60% of the grant program funding went to the replacement of windows this year, which I'm sure everyone in this meeting is aware that is not the most important thing that you can be doing for fire prevention around your homes. And right next to that statistic, we have all this other data that says there's a large amounts of hazardous vegetation in zone 0 and 1, and too porous of vent screening, lack of gutter guards or vinyl gutters across the county, but people are choosing to use the grant funds for bigger ticket and more aesthetic items like windows, which have other wonderful co-benefits, but just that's not the purpose of MWPA. So that was one issue that we wanted to solve. And kind of a tangential issue from that is that lower priority items are expending funds within just a few months of the program opening, which is kind of detracting from the whole point of having a program designed to meet the needs of access and functional needs communities, because a lot of these folks can't even get to the application because the funds are spent through with $5,000 window applications within a few months. So, and then the third, large issue that we wanted to solve is that the process, we keep hearing the process is pretty difficult for residents. And I think that this is mostly just because most of our residents are older, or most of our applicants are older. It's the program's designed for access and functional needs communities, and the majority of folks who apply select that criteria. And I think the sticking point for this is compiling all the documentation for a reimbursement grant. There's rarely an application that it has all documentation submitted with the initial grant, and usually takes anywhere from 1 to 3, often even more hours working with the resident to try and get all of those materials together, which is frustrating for the resident, and also just not the most efficient use of staff time. So we're trying to design a program around that as well. Let's see. Another issue is that we see a lot of residents that are kind of getting gouged by contractors for relatively simple work. The ranges of costs for some items like gutter guards just vary drastically from parcel to parcel. And while we have as a public agency no capacity to recommend contractors, we can design a program where we select contractors through an RFP to do some of this work, and, clearly identified in the scope of work. And so that kind of brings us to the direct assistance model that we've been putting together for the last few weeks. We've kind of gone back and forth on this first item, but it's looking like we're moving towards a direct assistance and reimbursement model, two programs side by side, the way that they work together and the eligibility for a reimbursement model, what items would be eligible under a reimbursement grant. That's still to be determined, but most of the folks in the working group have expressed support for a hybridized model. It'll be designed to prioritize the direct assistance model for a small selection of high priority vegetation management, home hardening hazards. So this is bamboo, juniper, cypress, within zone 0 and 1. I think I'm missing a vegetation type there. And then gutter guards and potentially vents. That list is still kind of being finalized, but it's looking like a generally just a much more specific and narrowed list of items that are eligible for the direct assistance program, which will make it easier to select a contractor through an RFP or multiple contractors. And then, yeah, the last kind of benefit of the direct assistance model is that we'd be able to obtain competitive bids with qualified contractors, and prioritize properties that are seeking assistance with the highest priority items. So kind of the process that we've scoped out so far is that before the season opens, we'll send out a mailer to residents who have that list of eligible items on their application saying, hey, this is this new thing that we're trying out, and we'll come to your house and do the work for you and kind of walk them through the process before the season starts so that we can kind of start the season off just putting together a schedule and meeting with residents, and yeah, just kind of start off strong. Applicants will still be applying through the defensible space report, though because no document upload is required, I think the process is going to be a lot easier for residents. The applicant will then receive a pre-parcel consultation with likely MWPA staff, in which staff drafts a specific scope of work for contractors and obtains a signature from the resident for a contract for a scope of work that clearly and completely identifies all the work that's going to be done. So this will serve two purposes. One, that leaves no gray area for the resident to be frustrated at the contractors for doing something that wasn't identified ahead of time, because it's all written down extremely clearly. And two, on the other side of that, contractors will have a really clear idea of what work they will and won't do on a property. That's one of the big issues that we've been trying to make sure that we're avoiding with this transition to a direct assistance program is the potential scenario in which we're dealing with miscommunication between residents and contractors and kind of having to mediate those interactions. And so we want to have that pre-parcel consultation ahead of time so that everything is crystal clear. And then as the defensible space inspection programs continue to capture more detail, the step will become a little bit less necessary. But for now, I think it's an important part of the program. And then the contractors perform the work. We've been tossing around the idea of trying to put together a schedule similar to chipper days or that follows chipper days to find synergies between the programs. That's still to be determined if that's going to be possible, but something that we're thinking about. And as I mentioned earlier, the working group would still like to maintain a reimbursement program so as not to penalize people who've been really proactive in addressing the highest priority hazards on their property. This is largely the area that still needs further discussion, figuring out what items are going to be in that reimbursement program. Is it going to be as broad as it is this year, or are we going to narrow that down a little bit to make sure that we're preserving funds for all the higher priority work being done in the direct assistance program? And then how they sit. Is it going to be side by side where residents are eligible for both, or is it going to be a tiered system where residents are only eligible for the reimbursement program if they've addressed all the high priority tier 1 items? So those are still some discussion items that we're working through. So yeah, I think that kind of covers all the important points. Does anyone have any questions?
Ruben, before we get to questions, if I can add a couple thoughts, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First, I really appreciate the amount of effort the working group has been putting into this, because it's not an easy challenge, and they've really taken ownership, and that's really what we'd hope, is that the working group would take ownership of the program. I think we all can agree there were two major drawbacks to the MWPA resident grant program. The first drawback was all hazards were treated equally, and we know that all hazards do not create the same risk on the property. And I think it was 2 years ago, you guys asked, when are we going to start treating the risks in the way that we should be treating the risks, rather than treating all hazards appropriately? And we earmarked this year. So we're accomplishing that goal. And then I think the other major drawback is the reimbursement aspect of the program, rather than having a direct benefit or a direct assistance. And I think having a hybrid model this year is probably a good transition towards that. And then we could use modeling right now, but it would be on a limited basis. But we have great data from IBHS and from NIST to help us identify what the high risk items are on property. I think as we look forward in the future, though, and our partnership with Willow Labs and the on-property modeling that we're doing, we can actually start engaging that modeling into helping us identify risk. And the last piece I'll add is there's a lot of residents in Marin that do have the financial wherewithal to be able to make the work happen, and they just want that easy button. And by vetting contractors up front and knowing that they're qualified contractors, it's not necessarily a recommendation from the MWPA, but at least we know that there's qualified contractors out there. And Josh is right, there are some contractors that are gouging people just because they can. And now we will be able to have reasonable rates, at least know what reasonable rates are that residents can compare to.
I'd like to add one, Larry, can't feel fire. I'd like to add one thing to that, and on Mark's points, which are excellent. One of the bigger inequities with this program in the past has always been timing. In the 20,000 plus inspections that we do through the Defensible Space Alliance, so the central, west, and southern zones, oftentimes it takes us the balance of the summer well into October to manage those inspections, leaving no money in the fund for folks that would like to utilize the grant program September, October into November. So I think by utilizing a schedule and having the opportunity to schedule these kind of like we do with the chipper, it probably will afford more equity across the platform to give more people access to the program. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Can we go ahead and take it out to the public to see if the public has comments or questions on this, Mark?
If any members of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please raise your hand through reactions in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. And no raised hands.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the committee. Great work, Josh. And I'd like to reiterate or echo what Mark has been saying. It's definitely a lot of good work put in by every agency staff members who are on the committee. So I think it's a collaborative effort, and it's a work in progress. And I think it's something that we'll be continuing to see evolve. So thank you guys. We truly appreciate it. With that, it takes us to item number 9, which is, are there any member requests from the committee regarding future agenda items? Seeing none, we'll go ahead.
Larry Pissarro, Can't Feel Fire.
Larry, go ahead.
Not specifically an agenda item, but it's something we've discussed in the past, and it would be a request for Ann for, you have a lot of great information on your slides. not only for your oral report, but also for the manager's report. It's great for us to be able to take that back to our jurisdictions, especially to prep our operations folks for the next meeting. Or this comes up in various meetings that we have throughout our individual districts and departments. So if you could make an attempt to send those to us after this meeting, that would be great.
They're already in your inbox.
Thank you so much.
Talk about service, man. That is great. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it. With that, it takes us to item number 10, which is meeting adjournment, which is we've done this meeting in 1 hour and 15 minutes. We are very efficient. I like it. So with that, we are adjourned and we will see everyone at our next meeting next month.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care, everyone.
Thank you.